Hey guys, welcome to the Walking by Faith podcast. Obviously I'm in a different environment again, and I don't know about y'all, but for me, my car is like the one place that I do the most like thinking and like reflecting. And so don't expect this to be like my last video from my car. But I wanted to get on here and talk to y'all and kind of do like a part 2 of the last video that I posted. If you haven't listened to that one, it was basically talking about like one of, I think, the most common, well, maybe not the most common, but a common like issue or struggle rather, that at least I have faced in my walk, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. But just kind of reflecting on how difficult sometimes it can be to be faithful in cultivating your relationship with God, right? If you haven't watched that, feel free to go listen to that. And this one, I kind of want to talk about, I guess, the more optimistic side, the more positive side of that. And that's the faithfulness of God in spite of our struggles, right? Because I often think on how like disappointed I can get in myself when I fall short. I mean, we hear and read all the time in God's words about how we as like human beings, as Christians, we all fall short of the glory of God, right? But it still doesn't feel good. They're making like a lot of noise. I hope y'all can't hear that. But yeah, how it doesn't feel good to fall short of God's glory. But I think often on the fact of, like, I look around me, I kind of reflect on the goodness of God, and I just sit here. Literally on my way to clinicals this morning, I was really like, wow, like, the Lord keeps reminding me of how much he loves me and how much, like, how faithful he is to me. And I keep saying to the Lord, like, Lord, I don't understand. I don't understand why you're so good to me. I don't understand why you're so faithful to me, why you continue to bless me beyond measure when I know for a fact I don't deserve it. And the Lord often says back to me, like, it's not about whether or not you deserve it. It's not about whether or not you've done anything to earn the blessings that he gives us. And he's right. Like, if you really like think on how like flawed we are as human beings, how much we make mistakes, how imperfect we are to compared to God's perfection, we don't deserve any good thing. But at the same time, if you think about it, that's literally what grace is, right? The Lord often blesses us beyond what we could ever deserve, right? And so yeah, I think there's a certain peace in that. And if you really, really sit and think about it, it's a certain love that the Lord gives us that, like, we really can't comprehend, that I can't comprehend. I don't think anybody can fully understand or fully comprehend the kind of love that God has for us. Because, like, as human beings, we think from, like, a human being's perspective, right? And so we think about how we love, like, our fellow man, how we love our family, how we love our friends, how we receive love from our family and our friends, right? And from a human perspective, that love is always kind of it's imperfect compared to God's love. And by that I mean, like, the Lord gives us an agape love, an unconditional love. Again, like, something that we can't ever deserve. It's not something that we can ever earn. Like, there's nothing, and it says in Romans that there's nothing that can separate us from the love of God, right? And as Christians, like, that's the love that, like, we aim to that we strive to, like, show to other people. But we literally don't have the capacity, no matter how hard we try as human beings, we don't have the capacity to possess that same love, to show that same love to other people that the Lord shows for us. And so really, like, God's love for us is beyond our comprehension. And it's touching. It really is touching that we can be so imperfect, we can be so screwed up, and the Lord will still remind us of how much He loves us. And it's ridiculous because sometimes we may not even, like, realize it. Like, even, like, the smallest things that's, like, so, like, personal to us, it's easy to take those things for granted. But when you think about it, like, the breath in our lungs, the fact that He is still keeping you here, like, the fact that you are still here on this earth to even, like, listen to me yap right now, we don't deserve to be here. And not only is He still keeping us, He's still keeping our loved ones, He's still protecting us, He's still sustaining us, and He's still opening new opportunities, new doors. He still cares enough for us to, even, like, when things, like, aren't, like, even, like, when things, like, suck, like, the Lord, it says in Proverbs, the Lord disciplines those that He loves. He still cares enough about us to, like, not give up on us, to not just be like, oh, they messed up one too many times, like, I'm not going to love them anymore, I'm not going to provide for them anymore. Like, no, like, that's not the God that's not who God is. And it's so easy for us to, like, again, in how we show love to each other, like, we know that, like, at the end of the day, even if, like, our ceilings are, like, super duper high, like, at the end of the day, like, we can't live up to the same love that God has. We have a cap on the love that we can show to people. And so that's why, like, sometimes we may feel disappointed when a loved one doesn't live up to the expectations that we have for them, or, like, we don't live up to the expectations that a loved one may have for us. A super simplistic example, like, when somebody, like, really close to you, like, forgets your birthday, like, it's not that that person doesn't love you, it's not that they don't care about you, but maybe, like, your birthday just wasn't on their mind for some reason, and, like, that's disappointing, like, because that person has 1,000,001 things going on, and, like, in your heart, maybe, like, in the background, maybe, like, this isn't you. But I feel like this is, like, not an uncommon example, but maybe just at the back of your mind, you may be like, well, I was hoping that, like, my birthday would be a little bit more significant to you. Not that it wasn't significant, just maybe not to the extent, but, like, you were hoping for. Like, again, super simplistic example, but my point is, as human beings, as much as we strive to have a perfect love for people, because, like, we try to follow Jesus' example, and He has a perfect agape love for us, as human beings, like, we just don't have that capacity. Well, I don't want to say we don't have the capacity, but there's a ceiling of how much love we can have for people. And I say that because God doesn't have that ceiling. God's love for us is so unconditional and so perfect that we can't comprehend it. And there's a certain peace in that. There's a certain, it's like a warm, fuzzy, like blankety type feeling to know that there is somebody who is so big that he created this entire world. Everything that we see, all that's good and perfect, it comes from him. And as many people as on this planet, billions of people on this planet, he still has a perfect love for us, that never fails. It never fails. Even when we fall short, he still loves us anyway. Even when we're not thinking about him, he's still thinking about us. Even though he has billions of people to care for, he still not only loves us, but loves us with such a personal love. Like, he knows what's important to you. He knows your cares. He knows your worries. He knows your likes and dislikes. He knows all of that. And he loves us in such a perfect way that we can't get it from anywhere else. God is the only source of perfect love. And I think part of, like, going back to, like, interpersonal relationships with other people, like, I think when we, whenever a loved one, like, lets us down, or whenever, like, we're disappointed by something that somebody else did, I think part of that may be because we're placing such a perfect standard of love on an imperfect human being. And I think, and it's not to say, like, not to have, like, expectations for, like, how people treat you. Yes, obviously have high expectations for how people treat you, but I think realizing that can help us have grace for each other, and knowing that, like, nobody's perfect except God. And so God is the only one that could ever fully fulfill our perfect expectations of what love looks like. But I think also, like, when you're developing relationships with people, especially, like, people that, like, you intend to, like, have in your life forever, is like looking for a husband or looking for a wife. Like, that's why God is such, he literally lays out in 1 Corinthians 13, like, how we should love each other, because the way that God loves us should be how we aim to love each other, but also understanding that nobody else is God but God. Like, there's room for grace in that, if that makes sense. And so kind of thinking about this song that comes to mind has been on my mind and my heart, is what a friend we have in Jesus. Because God is, if you let him, he will be your ultimate best friend. When, not only, like, when other people, like, may let you down or disappoint you, not even in that, but also knowing that, like, if you're somebody that, like, doesn't really like to communicate, like, their burdens with other people, they don't really like talking about the things that they're struggling with, and yeah, or, like, you feel like you're struggling with whatever, like, God is faithful. He knows everything that you're going through. He is with you through everything that you're going through. So, like, there's never gonna be a point where nobody understands what you're going through, because God does. He's with you through it all. He is the most faithful friend that you could ever have. And you can talk to him about everything. Especially, like, if you're like me, you're not really somebody that, like, loves to have everybody, like, knowing your business. God knows your business anyways. There's nothing that he doesn't know. And so he wants us to talk about our issues with him. He wants us to vent to him. He wants us to rant to him. And ultimately, he wants us to lay our burdens at his feet. Because not only does he want to hear about how we're feeling, but he wants us to trust him to take care of our stuff for us. kind of going back to, like, I think the first episode, he wants to carry our burdens for us. Like, what kind of friend, like that, like, there is not a more perfect friend than God. There's not. He loves us through our good and our bad. He not only cares about us through everything, but he wants to make things better for us. And he will, if we let him. There's not a more faithful friend. There's not a more loving friend. There's not a more perfect friend than Jesus. So yeah, I hope that you all will take peace in that truth, rest in that truth. I hope that you find joy in that truth. Because there's never a point where, like it says multiple times in the Bible actually, that the Lord will never leave us nor forsake us. And so I hope that you rest in knowing that even when it feels like nobody else loves you the way that you need to be loved, or nobody else knows what you're going through, God does. God does. And he delights in taking care of his children. But also in that, I also hope that from this you kind of take the example of how to love that the Lord sets for us, and kind of reflect on putting that into practice in our relationships, and moving with compassion towards others, having more grace towards others, because that's how the Lord loves us. And if you read in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, how Paul talks about how love is patient, it's kind, keeps no records of wrong, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it doesn't delight in evil, but it rejoices with the truth. Those are the kind of things that the Lord does with us 24/7, and how we should move in our own personal relationships as well. Because at the end of the day, our goal, especially as believers, should be to be more like Jesus. And thankfully, again, another example of God's grace, he gives us his word that literally outlines how to do that. So yeah, I thank you guys for all of you that sat here and listened to me rant. Again, I hope that something was said that was a blessing to you. And yeah, I thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you later.